Hello, Eric the Computer Guy here. Welcome to today's episode. We are going to be restoring the early 2008 MacBook to a more functional condition. We're going to be using the broken screen parts machine from the eBay lot that I picked up. Check out how it went from this to this. It's pretty impressive, isn't it? Well, let's get into the restoration. Hopefully this doesn't take too long. The teardown process is pretty simple with this machine, only because it's missing like almost all of the screws for the exterior, except for the two on the top, the two on the side, and the three on the bottom. Those are all the screws holding the top case to the bottom case. At this point, I can lift up the top case fairly easily, disconnect it, discard it, pull the SSD out, and begin the process of disassembling the internals. I start by taking out the speaker, which needs to come out anyways. At this point, I can move my focus over to the glorious piece that sits above the I/O, remove the wireless card. At this point, I can take out the MagSafe, which will be transferred over. Next, I'm disconnecting the battery terminal from the logic board. And now I'm working on the cables. These have to come out in order to maneuver the fan. Once those cables are disconnected, I can now work on disconnecting the fan from the logic board via the couple screws. Take that out, put it to the side. Next, I work on the heatsink. It's only held in by 4 screws, very simple, they're all the same size. With the heatsink out and moved to the side, I can now focus on taking the logic board out. This is fairly simple, except for one little quirk you'll see in a moment with this system. The logic board, unfortunately, has a clip underneath that holds up to the I/O and connects to that top plate we removed. But this one's stuck to the bottom and just falls off. It's supposed to stay there. Now I'm disconnecting the optical drive so we can get our LCD assembly out. You'll see why this is important in a second. Now we work on disconnecting that screw in order to start derouting cables. Once we get these cables derouted, we can focus on the LCD, but I made one mistake here. There's one more screw that holds in the LCD cable that I forgot to remove. Once the screws are out, we can take the LCD off, but I highly recommend putting the LCD onto something to support it while you're doing this, because once the screws are out, it will just free fall and break. Now I get the connecting pieces that lock it in out and try to lift it. This is where the footage sadly ends because I forgot to record everything else. Now we're moving on to the cleaning process. I'm taking off the sticker from the new chassis after we rebuilt the laptop. That sticker was a pain to get off. I'm now scrubbing it with some Lysol cleaning stuff and using a little bit of rubbing alcohol and a Walmart gift card to basically pry off the glue. It did a pretty good job. Once this is done, we move over to the Lysol stuff again and just kind of continuously pull this off. At this stage, we have that spot satisfactory, and I start cleaning up everything else off the machine. There are a couple blemishes still on the computer that I couldn't really get off without risking of heavily damaging this chassis. I worked on the feet and I got them pretty much back to new, which was kind of surprising. I've never really seen them clean up that well. That blemish there came off pretty easily. Mine is a couple little hair streaks. There's that gouge that I cleaned out, and at this stage I'm working on the front of the case. Little blemishes there, they came out fairly easy. This one was a bit stubborn. I did get it pretty much the best I could, but it's still kind of there. Okay, the MacBook is fully restored in the new chassis. Doing the first power on test. There's no AC connected to it. It's got the battery in it. And we are loading up into Mac OS. It has a logic board, the heatsink, fan, MagSafe, and it's the other little piece that's got the LCD assembly from the original machine from part 1. You can see it's fully functioning. Another little beauty of this is if I take this blank DVD and I line it up with a tray, I put it in, it loads, and if I hold the eject button long enough, it will eject. No issues. It's got to do this loady load thing. Give it a moment. Oh, it actually ejected now. Cool. Anyways, this is the bottom case from the first video. So this crack, the newly formed chip. It is stripped down to basically just a battery terminal. A little bit of magnesium that sits over there. The Bluetooth module, a speaker, and the base, and the hard drive connector. The restoration did not really take a quick time as I was expecting, of about 2 hours. It took more like 5.5 hours. I started it at 5 p.m. and wasn't done with it until about 10 p.m. More like 10:30, so 5 hours, 30 minutes. It was a lot of work to basically get the screws in properly the second time, as I had a lot more to work with. But the machine now functions. I can press the power button, it powers right up, it powers right down. It's got a working optical drive, something it didn't have before. A pristine top case, which I was surprised about. With a broken screen, but a pristine top case, that was surprising. I'd probably do this process again, just with more time free to do it and a more well-ventilated room. I was sweating very heavily during this process, just due to the stress of anything going wrong. Luckily, nothing major broke. I only broke an eyelet off of the LCD cable, but it did not affect the functionality.